So, the Among Us cartoon, after years of being teased, was just randomly dropped on Paramount Plus with no promotion or hype for the long-awaited project. After watching season 1, the one word I might use to describe the whole series is impressive. I was impressed with the show and how it was somehow able to maintain my attention without ever feeling dull, while obviously playing into a very simple concept. And if your first reaction is, what? Among Us had an animated series? Well, yes. It was announced around 3 years ago, I believe, and I was locked in ever since I heard the news. Like many people who lived through the dreaded 2020 pandemic, when everyone was stuck inside due to quarantine orders, we all witnessed this once niche indie game that launched in 2018, exploded in popularity while still remaining as a recognizable pop culture icon. Even though the game has definitely lost a decent portion of their viewer base and player base over the years, the gameplay itself is still enjoyable to this day. And if a good amount of my friends are down for a quick Among Us session, you best believe I'm there. So as a person who still enjoys the game, an Among Us series could absolutely work. The idea of a murder mystery centered around figuring out which crewmate is the imposter can lead to a compelling story depending on the execution. Keep in mind that a simple concept is also very easy to mess up, which can result into a bland and predictable show. Going into this series, I honestly didn't know what to expect, and I definitely didn't want to get spoiled on which crewmate was the imposter. I really wanted to go into the show completely blind, and I suggest you do the same. That's why I'm going to try to leave out as much spoilers as possible, because I believe that if you enjoy the game, you probably enjoy the show as well. And maybe if this video does well, I'll make a deeper video discussing the actual story and exploring what a possible season 2 could realistically do. It's actually such a shame that this show didn't properly get promoted despite Among Us still being one of the most recognizable games of the last 5 years. This is especially concerning coming from Paramount, a company that I personally criticized before for their handling of Avatar. Second, I feel like if this series had been released weekly, with each episode building off the hype and mystery surrounding the plot, it would have led to more of a successful product. This is one of the few times where I didn't prefer having the ability to binge an entire season in one sitting. Part of the fun for having a mystery is discussing theories, debating clues, and trying to figure out what's gonna happen next. Releasing all the episodes at once takes away some of that experience, and I think the show could have benefited from giving viewers more time to sit with each episode. So why is this show surprisingly good, and why do I think you should watch it? Well, let's find out. Time out, time out, time out. It turns out a little over 90% of y'all are actually not subscribed to the channel. Either if this is your first time watching me or have already seen a couple of my videos, if you like the content I put out, you should definitely subscribe. Now with that out the way, let's get back to the video. Well, for starters, the series understands exactly what it is and it doesn't try to overcomplicate its premise. It takes the simple concept of Among Us and expands it into an entertaining murder mystery filled with suspense, humor, and enough twists to keep you invested in what's happening. And let's circle back. The humor and twists are not only great, but are the spotlights of the entire series. The vibe you get from the show generally feels like the same atmosphere you get while playing with your friends. The crewmates are uniquely distinguished from one another, creating their own identities and personal dynamics that makes them feel like actual people. Looking back on each crewmate's screen time, they were given a proportionate amount of characterization, so the plot never feels like anyone got ignored or left behind. And as someone who put over 100 hours into this game, these character archetypes are kind of scary in how similar they are to the types of players you meet in game, or even the way your friends will act when you play together. We got the duo who completely holds each other's pockets for the entire game, the player who tries to force themselves into being the group leader, and that dumbass friend who's playing imposter with you and you end up having to carry him to get the win. The twist, while somewhat predictable, was still executed well enough that it didn't ruin the experience of the show. I kind of feel like the only reason I was able to put 2 and 2 together so quickly because I simply played the game before and could recognize key traits that players often use. The show takes these tendencies that it knows the player base has and implement them in a way that feels more natural to the viewers. If I didn't know what the hell Among Us was, I doubt I would have figured out the ending as fast as I did. With the pacing not being an issue, not a single moment feels dull or like it's moving too fast. Season 1 consists of 10 episodes with an average runtime of about 13 minutes each. Looking back, I can only assume a rewatch would have been more enjoyable, especially with additional information you get from the ending. It will likely change how you originally perceive these characters and completely reframe certain moments. That's something I'm personally looking forward towards after making this video and possibly turning into a follow-up video if y'all want to see that happen. Another thing to note before moving on is that the animation was great, the voice acting was solid, with every voice actor trying to make their character leave an impression on the viewer. They did a great job delivering their comedic lines, while the stylistic choice of the cartoon tried its best to stay true to the gameplay design that we're all used to. Overall, it really feels like a love letter to the fans, I might say. I think the show not being released weekly did more harm than good, and the lack of promotion definitely didn't help either. A project as big as this shouldn't have been treated like a here nigga damn release, with Paramount handling it in such a poor way, it almost feels like they were trying to give it a reason to be cancelled. But beyond that, I do have some personal nitpicks. I can't really go too in depth about the story without getting into spoilers, but I was a bit disappointed that they didn't make use of the ghost aspect from the original game. When a crewmate dies, that's it, which I guess makes sense since if every dead person was able to communicate with each other, we would immediately know who the imposter was. Still, I held out hope that we could have seen a moment where a ghost used the guardian angel mechanic to save a crewmate or influence the show in some meaningful way. That felt like a complete missed opportunity. Surprisingly, there's enough within the general story that can serve a pathway to a necessary season 2. One of the key elements is how Mira, the company, kind of acts as a overwatching antagonist that supersedes the imposter itself, haunting the narrative throughout the entire season. That's a concept I'd like to see fully fleshed out and explained more in the lore moving forward. Overall, the Among Us animated series surprisingly did not disappoint me while being a much enjoyable experience, with it being more impressive than I initially expected it to be, and as a true fan of the game, I appreciate it for what it was. And if you're watching this video and you still didn't watch it, you should give it a fair shake. But if you have watched the series and you want me to talk about it more, please show your support down in the comment section below or join my Discord so we can talk about it. If you made it this far, don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, I'm your host Taken and we do a little reviewing around here. Peace out.